Training stress is like credit card debt. I've talked before on this channel about the importance of deloading for the sake of the long-term progression and also for longevity, right? So this is a concept that's going to get even more and more important to you the older that you become, and I'll tell you why. When I was younger, I used to watch and analyze athletes, right? And the way that I always understood it was that eventually we all just kind of get old, right? We all just come to a point where we eventually start to gradually lose our physical abilities. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize that this isn't really the case. You don't simply lose physical ability as a byproduct of getting older. You don't simply degrade over time, right? At least not to the degree that we typically think of when it comes to our ideas about athletes and aging or physical capacity and aging, right? What actually happens is that as you age and as you accrue training volume of any sort, whether it be in the weight room or on the playing field or even at work, and as your body encounters a greater total amount of stress, a greater total amount of workload over its lifetime, orthopedic issues start to creep into the picture, right? Certain joints may become problematic. Certain tendons or other soft tissues may start to become chronically irritated. Certain muscles may start to become predisposed to strains. Low back pain becomes an issue for many people for a myriad of different reasons, etc., etc. But basically what happens is that we all develop a string of orthopedic issues, right? And ultimately, those orthopedic issues hamper the ability to train to such a degree that the physical abilities and capacities that we possess start to lessen and lessen over time. If it takes a certain threshold of work for you to maintain a particular amount of fitness, and actually this is a topic that I want to do a deeper dive into later this week, but you guys can wait until Friday for that one. But if it takes a certain threshold of work for you to maintain a particular amount of fitness, a particular quality of fitness, whatever it is, and then you are no longer physically capable of clocking in that volume of work without making yourself hurt all the time in different ways or in specific areas, whatever it is, due to your accumulated orthopedic issues, then you will no longer be capable of putting in that workload, right? At least not for very much longer. And as a consequence of that, your physical abilities will eventually degrade. They will become lesser than they were. But what that means is you didn't just get old, right? Your body didn't just begin to lose performance capability simply by virtue of age, and there was absolutely nothing that could be done about it, right? Rather, what happened is your body lost performance capability because you're no longer putting in the work that is required to maintain that performance capability. And I think it might sound like I'm splitting hairs, but I personally think that that is an important distinction to make because it gives us agency. It gives us control over the situation. It means that if we can stave off or gain better control over these potential orthopedic issues, that we can delay the inability to continue training hard, and therefore we can push back the time at which this physical degradation begins to occur, as well as potentially lessen its severity. I was actually writing the bit about deloads for my conjugate training manual the other day. That manual is up to 30,000 words, by the way. It's basically a small book at this point, and I ain't done yet. But I was writing the bit about deloads for that manual the other day, and I came up with this analogy about credit card debt as it pertains to the importance of deloading. And I wanted to share it here on the channel as well. So, deloads, in terms of our weight training endeavors primarily, right? Deloading is important because it allows cumulative fatigue to dissipate. So basically, every time that you impose a large stress on the body, it takes a certain period of time for the body to recover from that stress in totality, right? However, if all you ever did in your weight training endeavors was impose a given amount of stress and then wait to train again until you were absolutely certain that all that stress had been recovered from, I would wager, and chances are, you wouldn't get very far in terms of building physical prowess if you went about things like that, right? Because the fact of the matter is, you can impose a good bit of stress on the body and come back to it before that stress has really been fully recovered from or recovered from in whole, and you can hit it hard again and actually have very productive training sessions. So basically, we can string these sessions together by programming correctly, even though we are carrying some of that fatigue with us from session to session, that lingering fatigue. But because of that, some fatigue does accumulate in the body slowly over time. Non-gym related stress notwithstanding, everything that you do inside the gym comes at a cost, right? The big ticket items, the squats, deads, bench presses, overhead presses, chin-ups, rows, etc., they all have the most value, right? There's a reason that they're the big ticket items. So we certainly should be doing those exercises hard and heavy and frequently, but because they are big ticket items, they also cost the most. That is, they also create the most fatigue. They give you the most value, but they also create the most fatigue as well. So in a way, we charge these big ticket items onto a metaphorical training credit card every time that we work out. We then carry the debt that they create with us from training session to training session. That is the cumulative fatigue. And we pay small amounts of that fatigue off every single day through the natural process of recovery, right? But then every time that we go back to the gym, we accumulate more stress again and therefore more debt again. Well, once you have accumulated enough debt, eventually you got to pay the piper, right? In this case, fortunately, the bank is not going to come repossess your home for not paying back your training debt, but unfortunately, the gains goblin may actually come and repossess some of your gains. So you do have to pay him back in full at some point, and you do that with the deload. With a transient but drastic reduction in training stress, you're able to allow for this cumulative fatigue, which has likely been accumulating slowly over the course of several months, to finally dissipate in full. In this case, you pay off all of your debt in one fell swoop rather than by paying small bits and pieces here and there as you've been doing up to this point. So, training stress is like credit card debt. Now, I will go so far as to say that deloading every few months should be a requirement for anybody who is actually training hard, actually training seriously, regardless of what their goals are in the gym. By every few months, I'm talking, 18 to 24 weeks. Let's say 24 weeks. So I'm asking you to do 2 deloads in an entire freaking year. It's really not that crazy, okay? And I'm saying that this should be a requirement for everybody who's training seriously, regardless of whether they're training for strength, performance, or even training just for aesthetics, for their physique. Some people are going to say, in response to this, that they get weaker or they lose muscle when they deload, right? Even if it's just a week long. But that is the inexperience of youth mistaking things that aren't real for things that are. And these are false conflations that I made myself when I was younger as well. Other people are going to say that they don't need to deload because they have figured out how to dose the stress optimally, right? The stress that they impose on their body is being dosed perfectly, and their program is set up perfectly. So deloading is not a requirement because no fatigue is accumulating. No fatigue is being carried from session to session and gradually building, right? Maybe not. But really, I want to see where those people are, the people with that mindset who never stop ever, never take any time off. I want to see where they are 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, as those orthopedic issues that I talked about earlier catch up to them and begin to mount. And they will begin to mount, especially if you never give the body a break from hard training. And that, in my opinion, is really where the necessity of this concept begins to gain the most clarity, from the perspective of longevity. If you're always beating yourself to a pulp and you never take periodic breaks to allow the body to reset, for lack of a better word, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to sideline yourself at an earlier age than if you had taken care simply to take a small, brief deload every few months. In my opinion, it's really not that much to ask. It's not that much time. It doesn't really set you back at all. And it gives you an insurance policy for the future. It's most likely going to act as a career extender, as a form of enhancing longevity while also helping you to feel better more often than not, right? Now, before I close today, I want to leave you with an example that I think really helps to highlight the importance of this concept. And that, excuse me, and that's the career of American sprinter Justin Gatlin. Now, Gatlin retired last year, 2021, after he pulled his hamstring in the 100-meter finals at the U.S. Olympic trials, and that was his bid to make a 4th Olympic team, right, at age 39. And he actually missed the 2008 Olympics due to a 4-year doping ban that he was serving. Now, this is important because with that, Gatlin's professional career actually spanned from 2003 all the way to 2021. He was still running sub 10 seconds in the 100-meter dash at age 39 last year, and he actually ran his fastest times ever in 2015 at age 34, where he hit 9.74 seconds in the 100-meter dash. He also broke 9.8 seconds 5 times that year. So what does all of that have to do with anything? It's a lesson in longevity. Gatlin was forced to take a 4-year hiatus from competition due to a doping ban, and with that, he ended up running his best times ever in his mid-30s, when it's widely regarded that sprinters tend to peak in their mid to late 20s. He basically took a 4-year deload, and he ended up breaking many conceptions about aging and speed because of that. Now, do I think that he sat on his ass for 4 straight years? No, of course not. But I do think that without the pressure of keeping up with a competitive season for all those years, that he was probably still able to train hard, but also while listening to his body a little bit more. And that ultimately, that played a large role in his longevity and his ability to peak later in life than most other people in his profession. So what can we take away from that? What can you and I take away from that? I think we should look to examples like this as evidence of the importance of dialing it back when needed, or at least dialing it back every now and then, right? It seems pretty clear that judiciously applied rest from intense stress and strategic reductions in workload or reductions in intensity of work are very beneficial when it comes to just letting you kick ass for as long as humanly possible. Every athlete who's been busting their ass for months or even years on end and then finally takes a 2, 3, or 4 month break of doing pretty much nothing will tell you that their legs have never felt springier than that first day back. And that is because their body finally healed. It finally recovered from all that stress that they were carrying along with them for months that they didn't even realize that they were carrying along with them for months. And no one cares about the old man in the gym who's constantly one-upping everybody with tales of what he could do back in his day, right? So don't become that guy. Set yourself up so that instead of telling everybody how strong you used to be, you can simply continue to be that strong. And part of that is going to be judiciously applied deloads. That's all I got, guys. Like, share, subscribe, check out UncureEliteFitness.com, and keep training hard. I will catch you guys next time.